So carrying on from part one, we're going to look at present characteristics, moving on from where we looked at natural characteristics, past characteristics, and a little bit on the built environment. We're going to look at demography and social economics, culture, a bit more on the built environment, political impacts, but also shifting resources and how they will all have an impact on place identity. So looking at the demographic structure of Lympstone, it's much more ethnically homogenous than we found Toxteth. So most of the people in it are white, and there's a very, very, very small proportion of people that are non-white, 1%. So very, very different, where Toxteth had almost 20% of people that were not white. This is largely because of the fact there is very few urban centres in Devon, so places like Plymouth and Exeter are the only major places, and both of them have under 300,000 people living in it. And we often find that urban areas are places where migrants would normally go to, and therefore we see more ethnic diversity there. Also, partly because of the economic activity that is historically connected with Devon and this part of the world, agriculture and tourism, especially in the 60s and 70s, these were the main economic activities, and so there were few jobs for migrants. Hence why we see this homogeneous predominance of white. It isn't everywhere though. This is a pie chart of Plymouth, and as we can see, significantly more non-white. Not as much as kind of other parts of the country, but there is that gap between the rural and urban areas. So Lympstone will be significantly whiter and less ethnically diverse than some of the more urban places in Devon. We looked at the social economics of Toxteth, and we can see quite a different contrast here. In terms of access to car, it's 88%, which is higher in Devon, but it's above the UK average. Again, that shows to us high disposable income. We can see it's a wealthier area than Toxteth because over 65% of people have and own their own home, again higher than the UK average. And that kind of factor we looked at before, 78% of people get 5 A stars to C. Again, this shows well-funded schools, the opportunities for potentially private tutoring, which is above the Devon average, but which is pretty good, but that's also above the UK average. So this is an area that has money, has the kind of finances in the community, and we can see it through these indicators. Another way of looking and just emphasising those indicators is the fact is we looked at skilled positions in the census. They put people into different positions. 45% of people in Lympstone have it. That's way above the UK average. Similarly, for managerial positions, 30% of people in Lympstone have a managerial position, which is again above the UK average. So we can see that the people in this area generally are earning more money, have more skills and qualifications, and especially when we contrast it with a place like Toxteth. Some of the kind of reasons that are behind these socioeconomic conditions link into what we're going to say about shifting resources. So in the UK, in the last 20, 30 years, slightly longer than that, we've seen a shift in the national economy away from secondary industry to services, and we're starting to see that growth in the quaternary sector. I'm going to talk about this building in the background in a sec, but this idea that we're switching to a knowledge economy. Knowledge economy basically means that these are jobs that are around processing knowledge and information. So I've put some examples here. Any sort of data analysis, IT services, finance, all of these involve knowledge, data, and kind of jobs surrounding the function of those. So this building behind is the Met Office, and it moved to Exeter, which is the closest major urban area to Lympstone. Moved there in 2003. And so this is an example of the knowledge economy growing in the south, and it will have effect on the people in Lympstone. It's the kind of place where people in Lympstone would live in Lympstone. We talked about dormitory settlement, but then they would commute in to work in a place like this. Similarly, this is a map of Exeter Science Park, which was built only 5 or 6 years ago. It's an example of the quaternary industry, 3,000 jobs there. So that knowledge economy is going to have an impact on Lympstone, because people that want to go and work in the knowledge economy could either go and live in Exeter, or they could go and move to the lovely village on the estuary and then commute in using that railway. The last kind of thing to mention in terms of this area is Exeter University. That is, again, part of this growth in the tertiary sector, where we see education, especially higher education, being a really important part of the economy. Exeter University is a huge employer, over 3,000 jobs provided, but more importantly, it provides loads of money, so over £500 million to the local economy. That's in terms of jobs it provides, but also the students that come there that spend money, and all the kind of associated knock-on multiplier effects on it. So as I said before, these kind of manager and skilled positions that we talked about earlier on, working in these tertiary and quaternary sectors, lots of those people will live in Lympstone and they will commute there. So if I build up the knowledge economy in the surrounding areas, that will affect places like Lympstone, because they become very, very attractive places to live and commute from, and that idea of the dormitory settlement. Looking at the way the culture might shape Lympstone, slightly different to Toxteth in the fact it's largely a Christian community, as shown by the parish church that dominates here, and that means most of the kind of religious events associated it would be tied to the Christian calendar. So celebrations at Easter, celebrations at Christmas, most of in the week, rather than Friday prayers as they would have in some of the mosques in Toxteth, we would have Sunday service in a church. Last thing to really consider is the political aspects that shape the identity of Lympstone. So Lympstone has a parish council. That is where 11 people are elected to the local government. And the job of the parish council is to sort out really, really local issues. So things like the lighting in the village, any maintenance of the road, but also maintaining communal facilities like the town, the village hall, and the sports pitches and anything associated with that. However, in the scale of things, they don't have that much power compared to the district and county council. District is East Devon and county is Devon. They have much more power. This is where East Devon, the district council, would be in charge of slightly more local things, so it's not quite as big as county, and therefore it does stuff like council tax, recycling and refuge and planning for really local issues. So if you want to change one of those listed buildings, the East Devon District Council would deal with that, where Devon County Council is much more in charge of the broader picture in the county. So education, all the schools, all the transportation, larger planning things for the whole county. So all of these people would have an impact on kind of how Lympstone exists. So if someone wants to make changes to a listed building, the parish council could oppose it, but realistically it would be East Devon and Devon that would have the actual power and authority.